Is 100,000 of VeChain's primary native token called VET good enough for me? Even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf and even though nothing I say is financial advice, yeah, I don't see why that's that bad because just let's put some perspective into this, right? Let's say VET were to go to the price of $1. Now, at $1, that's around a 30x from here. But even besides that, of course, at $1, if someone hypothetically owns 100,000 VET, then at that point, that holding is worth $100,000. Now, when I say this, there may be two hypothetical states of minds, in my opinion. The first one may be thinking, okay, that's not that much. And in the second aspect, or the second instance, I should say, they may be thinking, okay, you know what? That's a little bit impossible. Well, let me address the first part, then I'm going to get to the second part, which is people thinking it's a little bit, impossible. Well, again, let me start with the first part. Now, why is $100,000 bad? Let's just, again, think about this, right? Many people that I know out there, they're not only just holding VET. So if let's say in a make-believe scenario, someone had a very diversified portfolio, let's say around 10, 20 projects, right? And then let's say somewhere along there, they hold 100,000 VET, and let's say VET were to go to the price of $1, naturally that holding a VET becomes $100,000. It doesn't seem that bad, especially if the other projects, in that portfolio also do pretty good. So I don't think it's that bad again. Now, some people that I know out there as well, with around $50,000, they were able to travel the world for around 2 years. Now, are they living a VIP 5-star hotel and 5-star restaurant lifestyle? Yeah, no. But then, you know what? They were still able to travel, meet new people, gain new experiences, see new places, and just overall have a good time. So then I don't think it's that bad anyways. And also, just think about this, right? If let's say I made $100,000 from this cycle, right? And let's say I saved like even 30% of that. Let's say like, okay, 30,000. I use it for the next cycle and that does a 10x. That becomes hypothetically $300,000. So if anything, it's a pretty good stepping stone for potentially the next cycle, at least in my opinion as well. So either way, $100,000, I personally wouldn't complain about that. But again, of course, it's going to be different on a case-by-case scenario. Now that I've got that out of the way, let me talk about the second part that I was talking about earlier, which is people thinking, oh, $1? That's a little bit impossible when it comes to VET. Now, is it really? Because if VET were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $86 billion. Now, that's around a 30x from here again, like I mentioned earlier on in the video. How is this too much to ask for? First of all, we've seen Dogecoin years ago reach over $80 billion in market cap, but that's not even my main point. My main point is this. If let's say during a fully fledged bull run, Bitcoin were to go to the price of around $300,000, and let's say at that point market cap's around $6 trillion, and then let's say somewhere along there, something like Ethereum went to around a $2 trillion market cap. Let's say that's the case. Now that's again combined $8 trillion. Now I'm not saying including Solana, BNB, something like XRP, XL. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying those two projects alone, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, why is $8 trillion a lot? In $1 trillion, that's literally $1,000 billion. That's an insane amount. But what's even more crazy is that in $1 billion, that's 1,000 million. But even besides that, are we saying out of 8,000 billion during a fully fledged bull run, just from Bitcoin and Ethereum alone, let's say, in a make-believe scenario, why can't around 86 billion flow into this? This is just my perspective. Now, there's no guarantees. Of course, I can't tell the future, but I'm just saying that really wouldn't surprise me, but only time will tell. Now, some people may think, okay, we get that, but then it doesn't mean that VET could hypothetically reach it because VeChain has bad fundamentals. Well, I completely disagree with that, and let me explain why. Because if we take a look at VeChain, what is their primary focus really? It's something called supply chain management. People may think it's a boring market. I get it. It's not something like AI or something, which is really cool. But then the way you take a look at it is that it's not bad because if you take a look at supply chain management, I think a lot of businesses out there, in one way or another, probably they could try to improve their supply chain management. So, VeChain, I don't see why it would be somewhat of a bad solution, actually. But even besides that point, VeChain is so amazing to the point that allegedly it's even already partners with, or should I say has partnerships with, right? Like in the case of PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte, and they make up 2 out of the big 4 accounting firms. So let's just let that sink in. Not to mention, their partnerships also include BMW, H&M, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, or otherwise known as LVMH, and also the government of Cyprus. Now, I'm just naming a few here, but I think that, if anything, truly puts into perspective how amazing VeChain is. Again, we're talking about like BMW or something like that. I mean, that's very impressive. But even besides that point, if a project is bad, do you think it'd be able to do that? I don't think so. It's just my opinion. Not to mention, if we take a look at something like VeChain, some people think, oh, it's kind of bad. Take a look at the VeChain Thor blockchain. It's not that popular. Well, maybe, yeah, it's not that popular, but really the VeChain Thor blockchain, it's something that holds a very special place, for me at least, because ever since 2018, guess how many network outages it had? Allegedly 0. Now, we have to think about this. We've seen many networks out there, get breached. It has a shutdown, whatever, has to restart. Who knows, right? VeChain Thor blockchain, pretty much flawless ever since 2018. So let's just let that sink in. That's how amazing it is. So when people say, oh, the VeChain Thor blockchain's bad. Oh, partnerships are bad. I think pretty much what I said kind of debunked that, actually. But even besides that point, what is another token besides, VET, which is the primary native token of VeChain? That's something called VTHO, which stands for VeChain Thor Energy. It's basically like a gas token, so to speak, and they're both used on the VeChain Thor blockchain. But again, I'm more so focused on VET, which is the VeChain token. But even besides that point, when I take a look at all of these factors right now, with over 600 million crypto owners according to Crypto.com research, which allegedly is more than ever before in history, but I think what's even more bullish about this is that I think this could be such a major contributing factor as to something like VET gaining a lot of attention. And here's the thing. We have this many crypto owners currently without ever seeing Bitcoin go to the price of $150,000, let alone $200,000 or even $300,000. We haven't seen that yet. So if that were to happen, what would the amount of crypto owners be? Would it only be around 600 million? Or would there be 700 million? Or over 800 million? Who knows? But that wouldn't surprise me. And I think that if we do see an increase in that many crypto owners, especially as the space overall does a lot better, especially once we see like a 2021 type of altcoin season, if we see something like that, in my opinion, with that much attention, I believe hypothetically some may flow into this. But only time will tell. Now, usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. The last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of last year, so 18 months from then would actually mean around October this year. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. But you know what? With the way the markets are heading as of right now, history, in my opinion, may very well, at least in theory, hypothetically, somewhat maybe repeat itself. Who knows? Maybe as a worst case scenario. But I'm just saying, with the way the markets are heading as of right now, it doesn't seem that surprising to me. And you know what, 2021, it was a good glimpse. But I think this time around, maybe it could be very special. Only time will tell. But we'll wait and see. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciate it. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.